Professor Watkins, some, including yourself, have called for an economic boycott of Sanford, Florida, if George Zimmerman is not arrested. Tell our viewers why you support this.
I support the boycott as of right now, because when you look at what's going on in Sanford and what has happened in Sanford, it's not a stretch to think that there could be some serious corruption going on there. If you look throughout the history of George Zimmerman, you find that this man, who is the son of a judge, has been allowed to walk free on many offenses that would have landed a guy like me in jail. So I think that there are some people that are shaking in their boots in the Sanford government that realize that they've been complicit in allowing this man to escape punishment for things that he's done in the past. So I think that everyone should be investigated. I think that his father should be investigated. I think that all of these individuals who may have obstructed justice now and in the past should be dealt with, because the prosecution of George Zimmerman is really just
looking like someone he had not seen before, and he knew most of the people in his neighborhood. So.
Had you seen him before?
No.
Never? Okay.
I know all the kids in my neighborhood, all the adults in my neighborhood.
He says all three of those things. They can't all possibly be true. I'll submit probably none of them are true, but the bottom line is he keeps contradicting himself, and not just in some minor fashion. He claims that he knows all of his neighbors, but I don't know yet of a neighbor who testified that they actually knew who he was before the shooting. And despite the fact that he's been the neighborhood watch chairperson, that he's lived there for years, that he claims to know all his neighbors and goes about parking enforcement, he doesn't know the name of the 3 streets.
I really did not honestly believe it. I honestly do believe, I don't know this guy from Adam, and I don't know the kid, so I have nothing to do. I do want to...
You may proceed.
Good morning, sir. Could you state your name for the record?
Jonathan Good.
Your last name is spelled G-O-O-D, is that correct?
Correct.
And do you know whether either Mr. Zimmerman or Mr. Martin were MMA trained at all?
I didn't know either people.
Record and spell both names.
Selene Bahadoor, Selene Bahadoor.
The latter part of 2011 and prior to February 26 of 2012, had you seen a person by the name of George Zimmerman in the retreat at Twin Lakes Townhomes?
I've seen him, yes.
And did you know him as a crime watch person or individual?
Yes.
Okay. Had he come a few months before, specifically before that February, handing out flyers about Crime Watch?
Yes.
or Neighborhood Watch?
Yes.
Okay. And did he introduce himself as a Neighborhood Watch person?
Yes.
Okay. State your name for the record, please.
Jeannie Manalo.
And could you spell? Could you state your name for the record, please, sir?
Jonathan Manalo.
And could you spell your last name?
M-A-N-A-L-O.
I want to draw your attention back to February of 2012. Were you living at 2861 Retreat View Circle?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, how long had you lived in that residence?
Approximately 3 years. I just walked towards the back to the T.
Okay. And when you got back there, did you see a man standing on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay. And did you know that man prior to that night?
No.
Okay. And do you know that person now to be George Zimmerman?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
If you could state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Yes, it's Jane Surdyka, S-U-R-D-Y-K-A.
Are you working at... You mentioned the person you described now as Mr. Zimmerman, and I gather you know the other person that was shot, Trayvon Martin. Did you know him before at all?
No.
Did you know Mr. Zimmerman at all before that night?
No.
Okay.
Not minor things. Those are evidence of someone who is intentionally obfuscating. And let me put it this way. There are 2 people involved here. One of them's dead and one of them's a liar. That is a circumstance that this court ought to consider.
Unfortunately, Sean, I have to interrupt at this point. Sure. I'm trying not to, but right now the state has charged his wife, Shelley, with a crime regarding that. And they've also suggested, or at least the court in its order suggested, that George may well have committed a crime. realizing that those potential charges exist against George and also that they presently exist against Shelley, I just don't think that we can talk about those precise evidence or elements because they're
and that's all the elements, including the conversations on the tapes, the jailhouse tapes that you had, conversations with your wife, etc.
I think so. Unfortunately, with the state's position to try and charge his wife with a crime as well, if that wasn't on the table, I don't know that we would have the same restrictions.
I'm surprised that the state did not file what I thought they were going to file, but I assume they can file it in the future if they deem to be necessary as far as what actions they're going to proceed against Ms. Zimmerman in this particular situation, because there's no doubt in the court's mind that she's aware of what transpired and what happened. The dates of the jail conversation precede that of the bond hearing. Is that correct, State?
Yes, Your Honor.
By how many days?
There was several of them prior to that. We have them on April 16th, on April the 12th, on April the 17th, on April the 15th.
They were well aware of the money that was available, well aware of the amounts that were in controversy here as far as large amounts. Mr. Zimmerman can't sit back, as I used, again, the euphemism, a potted palm, and let his wife testify falsely before the court when he knew well in advance of that hearing the amounts of money in controversy, nor can he allow his attorney to stand up and make misrepresentations, not by your fault whatsoever, Mr. O'Mara. You were completely candid and honest with the court as you've always been. And he can't sit back and obtain the benefit of a lower bond or circumstances based upon those material falsehoods. That's what they were. So at this time, revoke